He was just a normal guy living with his three sisters, struggling to survive the apocalypse just like any other protagonist. But one day, while leading a squad to hunt monsters, he was betrayed by his own boss and lost his life. But fate, however, had other plans. The next thing he knew, he opened his eyes and found himself in the body of a child, reborn as the only son of the very man who betrayed him. And this wasn't just some ordinary rebirth. From the moment of his birth, he was blessed with one of the ultra-rare thunder abilities, and on top of that, a broken system bound to him, the kind of power that could shake the entire world. But his mortal enemy treated him like treasure, pouring all his resources into him to make him even stronger, but that didn't lessen his hatred for these people who treated him like disposable trash. And to get back at them, his plan was simple. He would drink the milk of the very people who despised him, eat their food, and grow big and strong right under their very roof. And when the time was right, he would reveal his true identity to them, bring their family to the ground, find his three lost sisters, and climb to the top of the world. With that, the scene cuts to a luxury VIP maternity ward where the Liu family's young madam was in labor, surrounded by panicking doctors who were sweating under their breath, fearing for their lives as they tried to suppress her pain as much as possible, while the woman herself calmly flipped through magazines. That was when it finally happened. The baby's first cries echoed through the hallway, and a nurse rushed out to deliver the good news to the grandfather. The place instantly filled with congratulations, everyone bowing and praising the old man for the news of a grandchild. But the man wasn't celebrating. His face darkened as he asked where the father of the child was, furious that his son hadn't shown up for such a moment. The maid, nervous, admitted the truth. His playboy son had gone to a pleasure house while his wife was giving birth. Before the old man could explode in rage, a terrified scream came from the delivery room. Without wasting a breath, everyone rushed into the room to see what was going on, only to be stunned by the sight before them. The newborn's tiny body was wrapped in crackling arcs of electricity. The moment the old man's eyes landed on him, his eyes lit up. This was no ordinary ability. This was an innate divine sense, something so rare that most cultivators could never achieve it in their lifetime, and this child had awakened it at the very moment of his birth. But what the entire Liu family could never have imagined was that their firstborn grandson was none other than the very commoner they had once crushed to death without a second thought. With that, the story then shifts back a few months to the time the maid was bringing the madam her daily supplements. Among them was a high-grade essence embryo, something so rare that because of it, our boy had already reached the D-class threshold while still in an embryonic state. This was a secret technique used by aristocratic families to breed powerful heirs, with powers reaching thresholds that most common divine sense users could only touch after experiencing life and death situations, but he reached that level before even seeing the light of day. 2 months later, the embryo had already started absorbing the supplement and accelerated the growth of the child. Another month passed, and that was when our hero discovered a dark secret about the woman carrying him in her womb. She was having an affair with another man, since her marriage to her bastard husband was just a political arrangement. So while still carrying a child, she kept on engaging in intense sessions with different men. Just like that, 6 months passed, and that was when his eyes finally landed on the very man responsible for separating him and his sisters. Seeing that dumb face, our hero wasn't able to hold in his emotions anymore. In a fit of rage, he swung his fist right at the man's face and managed to land a direct hit on his nose. The attack was so powerful that it launched the man several meters away, while the woman watched everything in shock. With that, she collapsed onto the bed, writhing in pain as the child inside her belly started squirming, trying to get out. Seeing the sight, the old man started panicking and instantly ordered the women taking care of her to check what was going on. Upon scanning her stomach, the woman was left speechless, realizing that somehow this child was so exceptionally talented that it was born with unusual phenomena and had developed completely in such a short amount of time. She informed the old man that the child was ready to be born. Hearing those words, the woman, writhing in agony, instantly shouted for the best delivery team. With that, the story cuts back to the present, where the news of the Liu family's firstborn child had spread through the whole city, and all the big names were coming to see the child, bringing gifts to congratulate the young master on his full moon. In that same crowd was a man who particularly caught our boy's eye, a man he knew very well from his past life. Right now, that same man was standing in front of him. Turns out this was one of the main culprits responsible for his death. The story cuts to that very day when our boy was at his home with his sisters, treating them to a delicious meal. That was when he received a call from someone informing him that the whole team had assembled and asked where he was, warning him of the consequences of breaching their contract. Back then, our boy was powerless and with no other choice. He told the man he would be there in a bit. With that, he apologized to the 3 girls, telling them he had work to do, and told them to eat without him, then left the house. And that was the very last time he saw them. Fast forward, the story cuts to the bastard himself standing watch outside the portal, waiting for someone to arrive. After some time, the one he had been waiting for finally showed up, and guess who? It turned out to be the same bastard G, who had come to see the progress of the plan. That was when he heard the underling report that the bait had already entered the portal some time ago, and by now none of them should have survived. Hearing that, the man was very pleased and praised him for doing a good job. Turns out these people had been using unsuspecting hunters as fodder, harvesting their lives to create those same high-grade essence embryos. With that, he gave the woman a loving pat, reminding her he was doing all this for her sake, so she should be thankful for it. After some time, the party was seen making their way deeper into the dungeon to collect their prize. That was when they heard a creature's screams coming from not far from them and realized someone was still alive. With that, the story cuts to a massive monster standing face to face with an exhausted man who was trying to fight it off, and the man was none other than our main hero. Despite being only a D-rank hunter, he had managed to hold his ground against such a powerful monster. By then, the party of bastards had also arrived at the place, and even they were left speechless seeing how much damage this person had managed to inflict on a high-level monster. That was when our boy heard the voice of the same fool who had called him to this place. He turned towards them and saw a whole party of powerful hunters walking toward him, and mistook them for reinforcements here to help him take on this monster. Meanwhile, back in the present, after recalling that day's incident, our hero was clawing at the face of the poor maid, desperately trying to draw the bastard's attention toward himself. The man, scared by those expressions on the child's face, started backing away to get away from him. That was when he heard Ji's voice asking if he was going to deny the privilege of taking his young master in his arms, and ordering him to do as the child says. With no other choice and trembling hands, the man reached out and finally took the boy into his arms. But the moment he had him in his grasp, our sly little fool triggered the second phase of his plan. A violent jolt of electricity shot straight out of his ass and surged into the man's hands. The shock was so intense it made the bastard yelp and instinctively let go, sending the child crashing face first onto the ground. The entire room froze at the sight. The guests, the entertainers, even the whole Liu family stood there stunned in silence. That was the moment the man realized he was completely ruined. The boy let out a loud scream and burst into tears, and the old man went into a fury at the sight of his precious treasure dropped like garbage. Terrified, the man fell to his knees and began slamming his head against the floor, begging for forgiveness, but it was no use. Ji stepped forward and drove a brutal kick straight into his face for daring to drop his son. Even then, the man scrambled back up, still pleading for mercy. He promised to give up everything, his wealth, his treasures, if only they would heal the young master. Hearing this, the greedy man's expression twisted with excitement, but outwardly he masked it, keeping his face cold and unreadable. With a wave of his hand, he ordered his men to drag the wretch outside and give him a proper beating. Upon realizing his life had been spared, the man broke down in relief, groveling and thanking him again and again, but just when he looked up to see the child, he noticed a smirk on his face and froze in shock. Before he could process the situation, the boy started crying once again, this time even louder. Furious, the old man instructed the maid to take the child inside to see if he was injured, while he dealt with the man responsible. After the child was taken away, he turned towards his useless son, calling him worthless in front of the whole crowd for sparing that man's life just for some measly possessions he possessed. Without a second word, he turned around and started walking away to check up on the kid. Seeing how he was insulted in front of the whole crowd just because of that man's mistake, Ji was fuming with anger. In his rage, he landed another kick right on his face and this time ordered his men to drag him outside and beat him to death, and after that, feed him to the dogs. Still furious because of his humiliation, he turned his attention towards the guests, asking what they were looking at and instructed them to continue eating and drinking since the party was still going. With that, the story cuts to our boy who was done with his checkup. The doctor assured the old man that the child was in perfect health and even praised him for having such an astonishing physique. Hearing the man's words, the old fool finally took a sigh of relief, seeing that the child was fine. Meanwhile, our boy was drifting off into his own thoughts, his mind circling back to his three sisters. He still had no clue where they were, or if they were even alive, in this apocalypse-ridden world. But deep down, he knew one thing: with this fragile little body of his, there was no way he could wander out there alone searching for them. Not yet. So he made up his mind to focus solely on his growth first, then move when the time was right. And for that, well, he figured he'd need the woman with the massive fun bags to keep him supplied with high-quality vital essence. Yeah, let's be real, that's not the only reason, bro. But hey, let the man enjoy while he can. With that thought in mind, he turned toward the old man and gestured, saying he was hungry and needed milk. Seeing this, the old man didn't waste a second, immediately ordering the maid to fetch the big booby woman for the child. The scene cut to the woman, who looked utterly horrified at the request. She had just fed him only a few minutes ago, and her poor pair were already drained dry. But the old man didn't care. He reminded her in all seriousness that it was her duty as a mother to that child, and that she should work tirelessly like an industrious ox or horse for her son's sake. His words, not mine. Don't come after me in the comments. With no other choice, the woman reluctantly agreed. But the moment her eyes landed on the fat head of our boy, regret hit her like a truck. Too late, though. Our boy latched on immediately, sucking on those bazongas like a starving beast, draining every last drop for nourishment purposes, of course. Although I've got my doubts. After she finished feeding the child, the old man immediately commanded the maids to bring her more nourishing soup. From that day onward, it pretty much turned into a daily routine for the poor woman. The kid was so clingy he refused to let go of her chest no matter what she tried. Not only that, he would hang on for hours, endlessly draining her dry, while the old man kept shoving nourishing tonics and medicine her way just to make sure her body could keep up with the boy's monstrous appetite. Just like that, 3 months passed and our boy finally learned how to crawl on all fours. He was now roaming around the whole place, looking for the big-chested woman to feed off her, while the poor maid tried to catch up to him. In these 3 months, he managed to level up from C-level primary to C-level intermediate, just by sucking on her breasts, something it took him a whole year to achieve in his previous life after fighting against countless monsters in the portals. As all that was going through his head, he finally managed to find the woman who was getting ready for her meal. Seeing him crawling out of her room, everyone was stunned, especially the old man, who in a fit of anger demanded to know who was responsible for letting such a fragile child out of his room, fearing that he could have gotten hurt. That was when he saw the panicking maid completely out of breath, apologizing since the kid was so fast that she wasn't able to catch up to him, and he managed to reach this part of the mansion. But of course, everyone already knew why he was wandering around. It wasn't some grand mystery. He was hunting for the big-chested woman. The moment she heard that, the woman went pale with horror. She immediately snapped at the maid to drag him away, swearing she'd feed him later. After all, for the past 3 months, the brat had done nothing but cling to her chest non-stop, and she desperately needed a break. But our boy, nah. He wasn't wasting time listening to her whining. He needed to get stronger and fast to find the sisters he lost thanks to them. And just like that, jaws dropped across the hall, seeing a child barely a few months old standing on his own 2 feet and walking. Before they could even process the sight, the little monster leapt straight at the woman, latched onto her fun bag, and started sucking away like a beast on a mission. Seeing the sight, the room fell silent since nobody had ever seen anything like this. Even the old man's personal butler had to admit he was impressed by the kid's absurd growth rate. The old man himself stood frozen, deep in thought. With talent like this, he knew one thing. Now that the child could walk, it was time to uphold the family rule, choosing a personal death servant for him, and he instructed his butler to make the necessary arrangements. With that, the story fast-forwards God knows how long, and the old man arrived in the family's cellar, where he asked his butler if he managed to find the perfect candidate for the child. Meanwhile, our boy, along with the big booby woman, had also come to the place to see what all this death servant thing was about. That was when he heard a loud scream coming from one of the chambers and got startled. In his shock, he turned around and found the cellar filled with the bodies of children covered in blood, and off to the side he spotted a familiar face who was locked in battle with someone. In front of the child was another prisoner, a much stronger-looking girl who was running straight towards her. Seeing the sight, the boy froze, as the girl with the white hair was none other than his own sister, whom he had been so worried about all this time and wondered how she had even ended up in this place. But there was no time to lose. Realizing that the child wouldn't be able to hold off against the attacker, he instinctively shot a powerful lightning attack towards the girl to save his sister, and the girl slammed onto the ground right in front of him. But that was the last thing on the child's mind, as she completely ignored the girl in front of her and leapt straight towards a potato lying on the ground and started munching down on it like it was her last meal. Meanwhile, the poor big-chested woman was left standing there, stunned in disbelief, still unable to process what had just happened. But our boy was more concerned about the fact that he had just attacked someone out of nowhere for no apparent reason at all. To his surprise, everyone was actually happy seeing how he attacked that girl without any fear or hesitation. The old man even rubbed it in his son's face, reminding him that at the same age he wasn't even half as strong as this child. Seeing this, our boy finally took a sigh of relief since he was afraid he had blown his cover with that stunt. That was when he heard the old man instructing his butler to take the surviving child, have her washed up, and teach her all the rules well, and after that, bring her over to the mansion. With that, the story fast-forwards a couple of days. Our boy was looking healthy as ever after sucking the poor woman dry. But today was a special day for him, since today was the day he was reuniting with one of his long-lost sisters, who was being instructed by the butler to protect the young master with her life. Not just that, the man informed her that she was going to accompany the young master through her entire life, and when he grows up, she was to teach him how to become an adult. In short, whatever the child tells her to do, she was to follow. After he was done explaining her duties, the man instructed her to go to the training hall to exercise after the young master had fallen asleep. And without waiting for her answer, the man slammed the door shut, leaving her alone with our boy. Just like that, the girl started walking towards our boy, who was excited to finally see her after so long. But that excitement didn't last long, as he saw her bringing out a knife from her skirt and coming straight at him. Seeing the sight, the boy finally realized what the girl was trying to do and started panicking, not sure what to do since his vocal cords weren't completely developed yet, so he couldn't even explain the situation to her. Before he could figure out what to do, the girl was already at his face, and that was when he heard her saying that this was payback for killing her brother. Little did she know she was about to kill him herself. Just like that, she swung the blade towards the kid, but like a flash of light, the kid vanished from sight and leapt to a distance. The girl was left stunned seeing this, since she never expected this toddler to be this powerful. Before she could even think about attacking again, the kid was already gone, and she suddenly noticed him appearing right beside her. Mistaking that the kid was trying to attack back, the girl activated one of her abilities and supercharged the dagger to strike. Seeing the ability, our boy was left speechless, since she was using a wind divine sense. With that, the girl swung once more, but just like last time, the kid vanished into thin air and she completely missed. With that, both of them started zooming around the room with lightning-fast speeds, but somehow our boy managed to outrun her with just a little more speed. But he knew he couldn't keep this up forever since his body wasn't strong enough to use divine sense for a long period of time, and it was putting a lot of strain on his body. While thinking what he should do, a thought suddenly hit him, and he got an idea. Wasting no time, he pointed his finger straight towards the girl and shot a lightning spear straight towards her leg and managed to land a direct hit. With that, the girl crashed face first onto the ground. With this, he finally managed to buy himself some time, but he knew it was far from done. He saw the girl still trying to get back up to attack him, but just then she froze as she saw the kid making a small cut on his finger using her knife. Before she could understand what he was trying to do, she saw him writing something onto the floor using his blood. Turns out he was telling the girl that he was her own brother who had somehow reincarnated into the body of this child, and was looking damn proud that he came up with this plan. Finally thinking that he managed to get the message across with that high IQ move, he opened his arms telling the girl to give him a hug. But instead of warm family reunion vibes, what he saw was her knife swinging straight for his face. And that's when it hit him, oh right, the girl was completely illiterate. She couldn't read a damn thing, which meant that brilliant genius move of his, yeah, straight up useless. But somehow, in the final second, he managed to move out of the way before his face got carved into two, and wondered what he should do, since if he screamed for help, everyone would find out she was trying to kill him, and she would be executed immediately. As all that drama was going on in some other part of the mansion, Chen, who miraculously was still alive, was seen making his way towards the kid's room. That is when he recalled Ji's words, who spared his life since he was still useful to him. But before leaving him lying there on the ground half broken, he suggested that he try to get on his little brat's good side if he wanted his old man to forgive him, otherwise things would get really difficult for him. Back in the present, Chen was seen looking at something in his hand, which was so precious that he had to sell off all his assets to get it. Since the Liu family was so rich and influential, they had pretty much all the resources at their disposal, so he needed to get something special to make up with the child. But just as he reached outside the kid's room, he heard some commotion coming from inside and wondered what was going on. Concerned for the kid's safety, the man wasted no time and opened the door to check if he was all right. That is when he saw the kid trying to run away from a girl in a maid outfit who had a knife in her hands. But our boy, yeah, he just saw a sacrificial lamb in front of him ready to be slaughtered for him and his sister. So without any hesitation, he grabbed onto the girl's arm to stop her and zapped her with another thunder spear, but this time straight at her head. The girl fell right on her face completely unconscious, but the kid was far from done. He grabbed the knife and with one clean motion made a small cut on his arm. And before the bastard at the door could even realize what was going on, he threw the thing right at his face and the dagger actually landed right on the man's hands, and for the precious item, it went stumbling under some furniture. Before his tiny brain could process what was going on, the child took in a deep breath and using all his power let out a loud cry that shook the whole damn building like a banshee alarm. All that crying attracted the attention of the old man and his useless son, who came rushing as soon as they heard the child crying. That is when they saw the unconscious girl on the ground with the bloody knife in the man's hand. Seeing this, the old man instantly put two and two together and figured that the bastard in front of them was trying to assassinate the future of the Liu family. Hearing the man's words, the fool froze in horror, realizing there was no saving him now. And before he could recover from that shock, a slap landed right on his face from the very man who spared his life earlier for trying to harm his child. But the man, still not giving up, tried explaining himself, telling both of them that when he entered the room, he saw the child being chased by the maid with a knife in hand. And when they saw him, the child cut his own arm and threw the knife at him. But as he turned towards the kid, he saw him shielding the girl and crying even louder now after hearing his explanation. Seeing him do that, the man knew there was no saving him now. And just like that, smack, another thunderous slap landed right on his face for trying to put the blame on the girl. Seeing the fool on the ground, the old man turned to his butler, instructing him to take the girl and tend to her injuries since she did well to protect the child. As for the man, he finally turned towards his useless son. Seeing that expression on his father's face, the guy knew the man wasn't pleased with him for disobeying his direct orders, since it nearly cost them everything. But lucky for him, the man just gave him a verbal warning, reminding him he taught him how to raise dogs, not spare them when they turned to bite their own owners. With those words, he started walking away, reminding the man this was his own mess, so he needed to deal with it himself. Seeing how he got humiliated by that old man once more because of this bastard, the man lost it and kicked him right on his face, launching him several meters away. And this time he wasn't planning on wasting a single second on the fool, and without any hesitation he ended him on the spot. With the mess finally sorted out and his sister out of danger, our boy took a sigh of relief. That is when he saw the butler reaching out to take him to his bed so he could tend to the girl. But that was actually bad news, since what he wrote for that girl earlier was still under the girl, and he knew if that old man saw it, his cover would be blown instantly. Realizing he wasn't out of the woods yet, the boy started panicking, wondering what to do, but it was no use. The man picked him up from the girl and placed him back on his bed. Looking back, he saw the old man reaching for the girl, and our hero, with no other choice, decided to just zap him unconscious, since that was the only way to get out of this situation. But lucky for him, when he lifted the child, the writing had already vanished. Instead, what worried him more was blood spilling from the girl's stomach, and he froze, wondering when did she get injured, since he clearly remembered grabbing the knife before it hit the ground. His expressions even caught the eye of the old man, who gave him a confused look, but thankfully he started walking away without thinking too much about it. With the danger finally gone, the boy collapsed on his butt, thanking the heavens above. Man had just dodged a damn bullet right there. But there was hardly any time to rest, since there were more important things he needed to do. With that thought in mind, he leaped off of his bed to get to work immediately. With that, the scene shifted to another part of the castle where the big booby woman was seen enjoying a massage. But just as she thought she could finally relax, she heard a baby's voice creeping closer and closer, and all that peace went flying straight out the damn window as she realized what was coming. And just as she had feared, she saw the demon of a child running towards her at full speed to latch onto her chest once more. With that, the story fast-forwarded a couple of minutes, and the poor woman was seen on all fours feeding the child, who wasn't planning on letting go anytime soon, since the next objective on the list was to accelerate his growth even faster until he could speak clearly so he could communicate with Yui when she finally came back. Just like that, a week had passed, and after non-stop feeding on the big-chested woman, our boy had managed to speed up his growth to the point where he could finally speak. At first it was just simple words, but now he was already practicing more complicated ones. But while he was practicing his speech, he failed to realize that someone was approaching him from behind, his long-lost sister. And from the look on her face, yeah, it was clear she hadn't changed her mind about avenging her brother. In fact, she seemed fully prepared to end him right there. But just as she was about to strike, the kid suddenly sprang to his feet, and to her surprise, the first words out of his mouth were that he was her older brother, the very one she had wanted to avenge. Hearing that, the girl froze. For a moment, she couldn't even process what she had just heard. That's when the kid said something that completely shattered her guard. He asked if the cake he had bought for her was delicious. The moment those words hit her ears, memories from that day came rushing back. She remembered how she and her sisters had been drooling over the treat their brother had brought for them. And with that, the story cut back to the past, back to the day when our boy received a call from Chen, instructing him to drop everything and head to the mission site immediately. He left, and the three sisters waited for him to return for a long time, but he never came back. And now, after all this time, this child standing before her was claiming to be that same brother. And when Yi realized he wasn't lying, she couldn't hold back her emotions. Her eyes started welling up with tears, and before our boy knew it, she dropped to her knees crying like a child. This startled our boy, and he was afraid she might blow her cover, so he told her to keep it down for now. Bad move. The girl grabbed him in her arms and hugged him tightly, asking if it was really him. Meanwhile, our boy was struggling to breathe. She had him locked in so tightly that he was on the verge of suffocating. But luckily, she let go before he ended up reincarnated all over again. Finally free from her grasp, our boy let out a long sigh of relief, thanking the heavens he was still alive. But there was no time to waste, so he immediately went back to Yi and, without warning, started yanking at her while bombarding her with questions. How did she get captured? How did she end up in this place? What happened to their two younger sisters? And how did she even find out that the Liu family was the one responsible for his death? Meanwhile, the poor girl could only sit there overwhelmed, begging him to stop as the maniac kept firing questions non-stop. Eventually, after both of them calmed down, Yui started filling our boy in with all the details. The story cut back once more to that time when the three sisters were waiting for their brother to return. But since they didn't know what had happened, worry started to creep in, since he had never stayed away for this long. At one point, they even considered the possibility that maybe he had gotten tired of them and decided to leave. But Yi refused to believe that. She knew their older brother would never abandon them, so with no other choice, she decided to find out what really happened, and told her younger sisters to stay behind and wait for her to return. By the time she arrived at the location, however, the whole building was already in chaos. News was spreading that Chen's entire party had been wiped out by a monster. Meanwhile, the bastard himself was completely unhinged. Annoyed by the words of the women screaming at him, he finally snapped and kicked her without any hesitation, launching her away in the distance. Seeing that, the rest of the people in the building turned on him, convinced that all of this was his fault, that their loved ones had died because of him and the Liu family. Realizing things were spiraling out of control, the man acted without hesitation. He activated his ability and launched a powerful attack straight at the nearest man charging at him. And just like that, everyone watched in horror as the victim's entire body was engulfed in flames, and just as quickly it was all over. That's when Chen's voice rang out, reminding everyone that spreading false rumors about his young master and his family meant only one thing: death. As for their loved ones, Chen made it clear they knew exactly what they were signing up for. It was a high-risk, high-reward mission, and according to the rules, they were responsible for their own deaths. Back in the present, after listening to the whole story, our boy told Yui that their suspicions had been correct. It was the Liu family's son who caused the death of all those awakened. That was why he was planning to punish the entire family for everything they had done. But more importantly, he was curious about his other two sisters. So he asked Yi where they were. But to his shock, the poor girl froze at the question, unable to even begin answering. Seeing the expression on her face, our boy immediately realized something bad had happened. And with a terrified look of his own, he asked her what exactly had happened. That's when she opened up about how she really ended up in this hellhole. While he was away, a demon tide had broken loose in their district, and by the time she and a few other hunters made it back to the city, it was already too late. The monsters had wiped everything clean, not a single soul left breathing. Panicked, she sprinted to their old apartment, desperate to find their two younger sisters. But when she finally arrived, the entire building was nothing but rubble. And right then, the cold truth sank in. Neither of the girls had survived the monster outbreak. Hearing the whole story, our boy just couldn't hold it in anymore. His tiny eyes started welling up, tears slipping out as he comforted the poor girl. He swore to her right then and there that this very family was the root of their destruction, and he'd use this twisted situation as his golden chance to get revenge for both their sisters. And topping that hit list, none other than the bastard who started it all, the Chen dog himself. Wait a damn second. Wasn't that guy already taken out? With that, the story shifted straight to the dog himself, rotting away in the cellar, screaming his lungs out for someone to hear him out, begging for a chance. But nobody came. Instead, what he got was a sharp clicking sound echoing from behind him. Surprised, he whipped his head around to see what it was, and that's when his eyes locked onto a nightmare. A monstrous creature creeping in from the back, staring right at him. Seeing the terrifying sight, the man fell to his knees, piss running down his legs as the reality hit him. This was the end. And then it came, a blood-curdling scream that rattled the cellar, before everything went dead silent. Meanwhile, back in our boy's room, he was still laying it all out for Yai. Step by step, the grand plan to send every last one of these arrogant villains straight to hell where they belonged. And the girl. She was locked in, nodding without hesitation, promising him she was with him all the way. But before they could start, there was another very important task she needed to complete. And upon asking what it was, the girl lifted him into the air, telling him she still needed to give him a bath. Hearing those words come out of her mouth, the boy was terrified and instantly refused, telling her he was still her brother. But that is when the girl reminded him they were not real siblings. On top of that, she was his personal maid now and needed to take care of his daily needs since it was her duty. Otherwise, she was going to get punished. Just like that, she started walking towards the shower with our boy in her arms while the poor fool struggled to break free. But it was no use. Before he knew it, he was already in the shower while the girl prepared the tub for him. He wondered if he should just bail while he still had the chance. But before he could, he saw the girl walking towards him to strip him naked so she could place him into the tub. Hearing that, our boy warned her to stay back, reminding her he could undress himself. But the girl didn't care, and with one swift move, she stripped him down bare. And that's when her eyes finally landed on the boy's baby elephant. And since this was her first time ever seeing the thing, curiosity got the better of her. She even called it cute. But our boy, yeah. The moment those cursed words left her mouth, his soul just left his body. He froze in place, tears streaming down his face, not even knowing what the hell to do anymore. Panicking, he covered himself to save what little scraps of dignity he had left, telling the girl not to say stuff like that about her brother. But the innocent thing didn't care. Her logic was simple. She was now the older sibling, so it was fine if she helped her little baby brother take a bath. With that, the girl actually turned around and started undressing right in front of him. And the next thing our boy saw was him in the tub with the girl, who was getting ready to scrub him squeaky clean. With that, she finally started, while pointing out how the people outside were fighting desperately just to get a little food. And taking a bath like this was something they wouldn't even dare to dream of, while these people had so much food to eat that they even threw the leftovers to the dogs. And our boy, clearly frustrated by that fact himself, told the girl that fairness was something one has to fight for with their own hands. But just in the middle of his sentence, he froze in shock. That is when he looked down and saw that the girl was actually scrubbing his privates like it was nothing. And that was the final straw. The boy full-on started crying, telling the girl to get away from him. But the girl told him this was something she was specifically told she must do. Fast forward a couple minutes, and yeah, our boy was squeaky clean on the outside, but completely dead on the inside, traumatized, just replaying the humiliation over and over, how he, the supposed older brother, got stripped bare and treated like a helpless toddler. The more he thought about it, the more the tears started leaking out again. Meanwhile, the girl noticed his expression and leaned in, asking softly if everything was all right. But our boy, now, he wasn't ready to forgive her, not after all that. He just turned his head away, sulking in pure anger. That's when her trembling voice came as she told him he was being mean and that it hurt, because he had never once been mean to her before. Hearing that, our boy let out a long, frustrated sigh. Deep down, he still saw himself as the older sibling, and so he forced himself to act like one. He told her he wasn't angry anymore, and trying to ease the tension, quickly switched topics, saying there was something important he needed to ask her. And in an instant, her mood did a full 180. She brightened up, telling him to go ahead and ask whatever was weighing on his mind. Curious, our boy asked if she awakened a wind-type ability, since he saw her use that during their first encounter. And the girl told him he was correct about that. Then came the real question. How? Since the earliest recorded divine awakening was at age 12, but she was nowhere near that, and he was curious how she managed to pull it off. To that, the girl actually shrugged, since even she didn't have an answer to that question. The only thing she remembered was seeing a panel appearing in front of her, showing her status with a chat box that would talk to her. And that was what instructed her how to awaken. All she did was follow the instructions. Hearing that, our boy froze, realizing he wasn't the only one who received that panel, but the chat box thing was new. So to check, he opened the system window, and sure enough, there it was, the chat box Ye was talking about. But that wasn't the thing that was bugging him, and he started wondering what all of this could mean, since he knew Yui for a really long time, but not once did he notice her showing any signs of awakening. But somehow, after his death, the girl mysteriously awakened her divine sense. On top of that, she also received the same system panel just like him and wondered what sort of power could be behind all this. He was still lost in thought, trying to piece everything together when Yi's voice pulled him back, asking if he was all right. Hearing her voice, our boy just shook his head, telling the girl it was nothing, and with a serious expression told the girl that now, since she had awakened her divine ability, she needed to get stronger quickly. And the girl, just as serious as him, promised that she will give it her all and train even harder for him. Hearing her answer, our boy patted her on the head, praising her, since among all three sisters, she had always been the most responsible one. As both siblings were in the middle of their conversation, they heard knocking on the door and got startled. Upon asking who it was, the maid from the other side informed our boy that it was time for him to eat, and since his grandfather was worried about his large appetite, they had his mother pump milk for him and brought it straight to his room. With that, the maid stepped inside, handed the bottle to Yui so she could feed the young master, and quietly left, leaving the two of them alone with the bottle. After they were finally alone, our boy turned towards Yui, telling her that in order to start the next phase of his plan, he needed her help, and for that she needed to get even stronger. But the girl had no idea how she was supposed to do that, since she had already been training tirelessly and she didn't know of any other way to get stronger than that. To that, our boy just smiled back, telling her he will tell her, but she will need to open her mouth first. And the girl, still confused and wondering what he was talking about, decided to just do as he said for now and open her mouth. And before she knew it, our boy shoved the bottle into her mouth, surprising Yi as she heard him telling her to drink up. Confused, the girl just started sucking on the bottle, and as soon as the milk entered her body, she felt a sudden change within herself as a mysterious aura began leaking out of her. Seeing this sudden boost in her strength, the girl asked our boy to explain what was happening to her. That was when our hero finally revealed one of the Liu family's secrets to Yi. It turned out that her seemingly ordinary-looking daughter-in-law of the Liu family wasn't ordinary at all, since that woman carried the ability to transform the Liu family's special beast crystal into something far greater, high-level magic beast crystals. These were the kind of treasures that even an A-rank raid team could barely get their hands on, and for most people out in the world, they could fight their entire lives and never afford even one. But this woman, on the other hand, she could produce them endlessly, naturally. After explaining that to Yui, he reminded her this was something never recorded in the Divine Sense Academy, a piece of knowledge hidden from ordinary people. He was certain the powerful families and top rulers had concealed much more, only feeding scraps of truth to the masses to make them fight and die for their sake. With determination in that tiny face of his, he told Yui that he intended to dig out all those secrets. After listening to everything, Yi finally realized how precious the milk from that woman really was and told him to drink up as well so both of them could grow stronger. But our boy refused. He told her this was all for her and ordered her to finish the whole thing, to push herself to her divine sense limit. As for him, he had more than one way to get stronger. With that, he leapt off the bed and made his way out to grab himself a meal. The next thing, he was back on top of the poor woman, latched onto her chest and sucking her dry. And for the woman, she finally had enough and lashed out, reminding our hero that she had just had so much milk pumped for her just for him. So how could he still be hungry after that? But the boy didn't listen to a single word. He kept sucking away while the maids behind them prepared to fetch more of the special medicine meals for their poor madam. With that, the story cuts to the night, and our boy was still up looking around his room for something. Turns out he was searching for the item brought by that bastard Chen, since he was sure the thing was still lying around somewhere in his room. And sure enough, after crawling on the floor for a minute or so, he finally managed to spot the item under some furniture. Picking up the box, he wondered what could it be, since that man brought this thing for him to save his life. And since the Liu family already holds most of the precious resources, it could only mean this man brought something special for him. Thinking that, he opened the box, and just as he had suspected, the thing inside the wooden box was a magic beast crystal. But the thing, for some reason, was black, unlike anything he had seen in his life. Just as he was processing all that, he heard a voice in his head informing him that the item he was looking at was a rare skill crystal, and upon absorbing the thing, he would acquire an elemental skill called Lightning Spear. Startled, he turned around and spotted the system chat box hovering in front of him, and asked the thing what this skill crystal was, since this was his first time seeing something like this, and what was this about acquiring a skill, since as far as he knows, in order to get a new skill, one requires cultivation. That was when he heard the system informing him about another secret kept away from the normal people. Turns out, among various beast races, evil species appear with special beast divine abilities, and after successfully hunting them, there is an extremely small chance of obtaining skill crystals. And once these crystals' power is absorbed, it strengthens the corresponding skill's energy circuits, meaning something that normally takes years of cultivation can be instantly learned. Hearing that, our boy was amazed to see how valuable this thing was. But just then another thought hit him, and he turned to the system, asking how it knew what he was thinking about. And the answer was simple. It was just a system residing in his consciousness, which is why it had the ability to sense what he was thinking about. But our boy wasn't impressed by the thing. He told it straight that before the apocalypse hit their world, he used to be just a high school kid obsessed with games and web novels. And in those, whenever a mysterious system appeared, it always issued a ton of tasks to the host, and upon successfully completing them, the host was rewarded with overpowered items and skills that made them unstoppable. But he, on the other hand, was completely useless, since the only thing it was capable of doing was displaying his real level and divine sensibilities. And he asked what kind of a crappy system was he. Hearing his words, the thing was surprised and lashed back, reminding our hero that without him he would not have known his ability was reincarnation, and would have died right there in the mouth of that monster. But instead of thanking him, he was being ungrateful. Hearing that, our boy realized the thing had a point, so instead of dragging it out, he asked the system what his relationship was with Yi's system. The second that question dropped, the thing started panicking like hell, stumbling over its words, acting all shady, and swearing it had nothing to do with her. It even denied knowing another system existed at all. Then, desperate to dodge the topic, it quickly snapped back at our hero, saying he was wasting time running his mouth instead of seizing the chance to strengthen himself and take revenge on his enemies. Yeah, I can definitely tell he has a thing for the second system. And our boy, not the least bit interested in that shady system's excuses, just shrugged him off since he was right. Wasting precious time on meaningless chatter was dumb. So without another word, he sat down and started absorbing the stone's power. Just like the system had said, he felt divine sense energy rushing through his body, circuits lighting up, and in an instant, he had acquired his brand new skill called Lightning Spear. Not some trash move either. This was the kind of skill that normally took 10 years of cultivation for an average guy to learn. Even better, it wasn't locked to one style. He could use it up close like a weapon, or hurl it like a deadly projectile. So of course he had to test it, and what could be a better target than his own room wall, right? Thinking that, our boy pointed at the wall, summoned the spear, and let it fly. Bad idea? Very, very bad idea. The damn thing didn't just leave a scorch mark. It ripped clean through the whole wall and blasted straight into the distance. Even he was left speechless, since he never expected it to be that powerful. And naturally, all that commotion pulled the entire Liu family straight to his door, and he saw everyone rushing into his room to check up on him. But the worst of all was his father, who did not look happy, since he was in the middle of his exercise routine, wink wink, and had to stop because of all the commotion he was causing. But as they turned towards the kid, he was on the ground happily chuckling, with a massive hole in the wall beside him. Seeing the sight, everyone froze, fearing that someone tried breaking into the kid's room. But the butler, who was outside at the time, informed everyone that he saw a powerful lightning bolt shoot out from the young master's room when supervising the death servant's training, and since the young master is the only one in here, he was sure that hole was caused by him. Hearing that, the old man was over the moon, seeing that his grandson not only was born with an innate divine sense, but already possessed divine sense skills, and called him a true prodigy. He was especially pleased with his daughter-in-law, since he was sure it was all because of her efforts in keeping up with the child's appetite, which is why he was developing at such a rapid pace. But of course, the father, on the other hand, wasn't as thrilled about all this as his old man, because he interrupted his training session. The old man immediately caught that sour look and barked at him, reminding him that this was his son, his flesh and blood, a once-in-a-generation talent. What kind of father acts like this instead of being proud? Hearing that scolding, the SpongeBob boxer-wearing loser of a father fell silent, sulking in the corner. Meanwhile, the old man wasn't wasting another second and declared that with this development, the boy was ready, so he was going to let him join their family's annual Otherworld hunting festival. With that, the story fast-forwarded a couple of days where the old man was seen asking his butler if the arrangements were complete, to which the butler informed the man that the target team had already been dispatched with their own people mixed among them to guide them straight towards the destination. Hearing that, the old man praised the work, but what he said after that caught the attention of both our hero and Yui, as they heard him saying that the descendants of their Liu family must experience from childhood what it means to be above others, and how to make those lowly commoners realize their true value. Hearing those words leave his lips, both of them were surprised, wondering what that old man could be trying to do now. Just as that was going through their heads, they saw him making his way towards the center of the room, and as he stood in the middle, he started some kind of ritual. Before they knew it, a massive portal appeared right in front of their eyes. This sight shocked our hero, since as far as he knew, these portals appeared randomly, but somehow this old man was able to open them at will, and he wondered how many more secrets these elite families were hiding from the rest of the world who are desperately trying to survive out there. Just like that, the scene cuts to the inside of the portal where the whole Liu family had arrived, and of course our boy was still busy latched onto the poor woman, using her as his personal milk dispenser. While he was busy stuffing his face with milk, he suddenly heard Ji's voice shouting for everyone to look into the distance since he had spotted something. Turning to the location, everyone saw smoke rising from the ground after a massive explosion, and realized that the party sent in here was probably at that spot. Wasting no time, they all decided to make their way toward the location. With that, the scene then cuts to the battlefield where the party was locked in a desperate struggle against a massive snake monster, a B-rank one-horned python king, along with its minions, a swarm of C-rank serpents. None of the hunters were ready to face creatures of this scale, since this beast was supposed to appear only in B-rank dungeons, yet here it was lurking in a C-rank portal. By then, our boy had also arrived at the site, and what he saw left him and Yi frozen. The monsters were shocking, sure, but not as shocking as the sight in front of them. Their younger sister Xuan, the one they had assumed to be long gone, was right there with the party. Not only alive but fighting, and not just fighting, tearing through minion monsters with nothing but her bare hands. That seemingly ordinary little girl they remembered was gone. What stood before them was someone who could go toe-to-toe with beasts that should have devoured her whole. Just then, they heard the voice of the party leader instructing everyone to fall back, but instead they heard Xuan's panicking voice trying to warn him of something. But it was no use, as everyone saw another man appearing behind him and driving his hand into the barrier the man was using to stop the monsters and shattering it into pieces. Seeing the sight, the other members started charging in to take out the man for attacking their captain, but the man was far too powerful, and he managed to take the man out with just one swing of his arm. Seeing the sight, the rest of the party froze, realizing that the man standing in front of them was none other than Qi Xiang, otherwise known as the Human Butcher, who was supposed to have been executed years ago. Yet somehow, here he was, alive, walking, breathing, and bathing in carnage. Meanwhile, Qi Xiang, after he was done with the man, tossed the lifeless body of the hunter straight towards the mouth of the beast. Seeing the terrifying sight, our boy was fuming in anger. Qi Xiang wasn't just a monster in human skin. He was a murderous demon who reveled in slaughtering divine awakeners and even helpless commoners. A mid-tier B-rank awakener originally sentenced to death, but instead of rotting in the ground, the Liu family had secretly sheltered him, using him as their personal thug. With that, the memories from his past life started rushing back to him, since this person was one of the people responsible for his death, as while fighting against the monster he was the one who severely injured him, which allowed that Liu family, young villain to deliver the fatal blow. With that, the scene cuts to that time when our boys saw the poor hunter they brought with them just so they could feed him to the monster, and as the creature was done devouring him, it started regaining its lost strength. But it was still not enough, and that is why our boy heard Ji ordering Qi Jiang to feed him to the creature as well so the treasure could be formed. Hearing his order, Qi Xiang wasted no time and leaped straight at our hero. But of course, our boy wasn't planning on becoming Monster Chow without a fight, and he prepared to fight back. Just like that, both their fists collided, creating ripples through the air around them. But our boy was already severely injured by that monster, and he wasn't able to hold off against this demon of a human, and he managed to overpower him. Back in the present, both siblings were terrified seeing that same man ripping through the whole party like insects, and they knew if they didn't do anything soon, Xuan would meet the same fate as the rest of the party. But just then, our boy finally got an idea to save his sister. Wasting no time, he turned towards the woman and started sucking the milk out. But this time, instead of swallowing, he stopped and turned towards the woman's face, leaving her wondering what he was trying to do. Before she knew it, he puked out all the milk right on her chest. The surprised woman shrieked, completely thrown off guard, and in pure panic, she instinctively yeeted the kid away. The boy went flying through the air, but thank the heavens Yi reacted just in time. She darted up, snatched him mid-flight, and landed clean on the ground. That's when she finally heard it. Our boy's plan, as he told her to hold steady and wait for his signal, because he was going to save Xuan. Just then, both of them heard a loud slap ringing across the whole place, and turning towards the location they saw Ji, who was fuming in anger, seeing how she threw away the child just because he spilled a little milk on her. But the woman wasn't taking that slap, not in this lifetime, since never before in her life had anyone dared to raise a hand on her, and no way in hell was she going to let this failure of a son of the Liu family get away with this. She prepared to end him on the spot, and before Ji could even react, he was already trapped inside her prison and saw the blade coming straight towards his face. Seeing the sight, both siblings froze, realizing they would be able to get rid of one of the Liu family scum today. But fate had other plans, and they saw a blinding light appearing between both of them, and both were pushed back. Turning towards the one responsible, they saw that it was none other than the old man. And from his tone, the man wasn't happy with either of them, as he reminded them both that the child they just tossed in the air was the future of both their families, and warned both of them to control their temper around each other. Hearing his words, both of them fell silent, since they knew crossing that man meant certain death for both of them. Meanwhile, Yi, still confused about the whole situation, asked our boy what he was planning to do, but our hero just told her to stay quiet and keep watching since the real fun was about to begin. Sure enough, all of them noticed rustling in the bushes nearby and turned to see what was causing it. And that is when they saw a bunch of goblins appearing from the forest, drawn to the location by some kind of small scent. Seeing the sight, the whole family got on their guard, and without wasting a second, Ji finished off all of them with one attack. But the butler beside him knew this was just the beginning, since these things were just scouts, and he was certain their screams had attracted the real danger right to their location. Even the old man was disappointed seeing how useless that son of his was, since he acted before thinking and ended up putting the whole family in danger. He informed everyone that the reason these creatures were drawn here was because of the scent of milk coming from his daughter-in-law's body, a scent more potent than even pure high-grade essence. Turns out, our boy already knew about that fact, and that was exactly why he puked the milk on her earlier, to turn her into a giant walking target in this place. And just as they feared, a whole horde of high-level monsters appeared right then, and leading them was a peak B-rank beast, the Elite Goblin. Without wasting even a breath, the thing lunged at them with its massive axe, and everyone had no choice but to fight back to keep it at bay. But for our boy, this was the opening he had been waiting for, so he told Yi Yi that it was time to act. Hearing him, the girl grabbed him in her arms and leaped straight off the cliff, shocking the hell out of him since he never expected her to pull something like that. But little did he know she had a plan, because in the next moment she activated one of her abilities and suddenly they were flying through the air. That one hit him even harder since it was a wind-type flight skill, something he didn't even know Yi had. So of course he asked her when she awakened it, and to his surprise she casually told him she had just completed a task and got rewarded with this skill. Hearing that, our boy froze and asked what task she was talking about and who gave it to her. Turns out it was a mission from her system, and the task was ridiculously simple. All she had to do was scrub him squeaky clean to unlock the skill. Yeah, you can imagine how pissed he was after hearing that, since he was stuck with such a useless system and had to do crazy painful stuff just to crawl this far, while she on the other hand only had to give him a damn bath to get a rare flight ability. Meanwhile, back on the battlefield, Xuan was still swinging with everything she had, trying to fight off the monsters, but there were just too many of them, and they kept pouring out one after another. The rest of the party wasn't doing much better either, especially with that freak giant snake still rampaging around. Right then, the thing charged at a rather healthy-looking female carrying a massive shield. Although she managed to stop the creature's attack, her shield was severely damaged and she started struggling to even stand on her 2 feet because of the impact. With no other choice, she turned towards the captain, gasping that she couldn't hold this thing for much longer. Meanwhile, the captain, who was still alive, was locked in a battle against Kuei Yizhang, asking for the reason of attacking them. But the man didn't need to reason, since for him all this slaughter and blood was nothing more than entertainment, and thanks to his master he had all the freedom in the world to enjoy himself like this. Hearing his answer, the man asked who his master was and why he was coming after them. But instead of answering, the man vanished into thin air, and the next thing they saw froze them in horror. Hell, even I was left frozen seeing him drive his arm through the body of that same healthy woman from earlier. God damn it, I hope this freak gets taken out in the most satisfying manner possible. Meanwhile, the captain, seeing the sight, froze in shock, seeing the poor thing's life slip away right in front of his eyes. Before he could recover from that shock, the bastard Kuei Jiang tossed her straight towards the mouth of the monster, and any hope I had of her surviving went down the drain after seeing the monster crush her between its fangs. Seeing the sight, the man finally lost all hope and ordered everyone to retreat, since the mission was over. But Xuan knew what the man was planning on doing, as she heard him telling her to run while she still could. Just as she had feared, the man started charging straight towards the monster responsible for the death of that woman. But as he swung his blade towards him, the man vanished once more, and before he could even recover, he reappeared, grabbing the man by the face to crush him to death. Seeing this, Xuan wasn't able to hold back anymore. She picked up a rock and hurled it straight towards the man with all her might, and the thing landed right on the man's shoulder. But it was no use, the thing didn't even leave a scratch on his body. She did, however, manage to grab the man's attention, and he turned towards her, surprised that at such a young age she managed to awaken her powers. Wasting no time, he leaped straight towards her to finish her off. But just as his claws were about to reach her, she saw something shattering in front of her eyes. Turns out it was the party leader, who, using what little strength was left in his body, managed to stop the man's attack and saved Xuan. But the bastard could care less, and he tossed the man straight into the air, sending him flying straight towards the mouth of the monster. Xuan just stood there in horror, watching him get devoured by the monster whole. But the man was far from done, since the thing still needed a little more to break through and mutate, so it could be of any use to them. Lucky for him, he had the perfect candidate for that to happen. Wasting no time, he started reaching for Xuan to do the same to her. The poor child, realizing that this was her end, just froze, unable to even move a muscle. But just as the man was about to grab her, she saw a bright yellow light aimed right at the man. Just as the thing was about to connect, the man swung his arm and managed to deflect it without any problem. Seeing this, Xuan froze, wondering what just happened, and turned towards the one responsible. She saw Yi appearing in front of her. Not just that, but she saw a child with her, and for some reason the kid reminded her awfully a lot of her brother. Before she could process anything, she heard the child calling her by name, saying he would explain everything later, but first they needed to deal with the current crisis. With that, he turned his attention towards the monster and noticed it was almost ready to evolve after devouring so many hunters. Just as he got distracted by that, he heard the man powering up from the back to finish his mission, and he did not look happy. He had just been attacked out of nowhere, and the ones attacking him were none other than the young master and his personal maid. On top of that, he was trying to protect this little girl who was supposed to be fodder. Before they could even think, the man started laughing like a maniac, According to him, the plan would stay unchanged regardless of his connection to the child. First, he would feed that redhead to the monster, then take the little lowly maid who kidnapped the young master and add her to his doll collection, and finally, bring the young master back to the big man for his reward. Hearing this, our boy froze in terror. This wasn't a normal brute, this guy was smart. Then he saw all the weapons on the ground starting to glow, and in a flash, they were absorbed into the man's body. Turns out this was a metal-type divine awakening ability called weapon fusion with body. Seeing that the man wasn't planning to hold back, our boy started to panic. He knew the odds were stacked against them. He was only a C-rank peak, while the enemy in front of them was a full B-rank intermediate. A huge leap in power. Yi was just at D-rank peak. Her wind-type ability good for speed but lacking stopping power. Xuan was also somewhere around D-rank, relying on brute strength. Even if all three of them worked together, the gap was just too wide. They were going to lose since the level gap between them was too large. Just as he was thinking of a way to survive this situation with his sisters, a thought hit him, and he told both girls to get ready and follow his instructions. With that, the man had fully powered up and was walking towards all of them, and with one swing of his hand he launched a bunch of projectiles straight towards all three of them. Seeing the things coming, both girls leaped out of the way. Meanwhile, our boy activated his divine ability and supercharged his body. Just as the projectiles were about to land, he moved out of the way like lightning, dodging all of them with ease. Meanwhile, the man, after watching him pull that off, was left stunned, since the move he just pulled was a forbidden technique not just anyone could master. That was when his expression started twisting, as he recalled the only person he saw use that ability, someone he took out not long ago, a mere D rank who had the strength to go toe-to-toe with him. But in the end, he met his end by his own hands. And right now, his instincts were telling him the child in front of him was that very same person. Hearing his words, our boy got worried, since that man had managed to guess his identity, and now he absolutely couldn't let him walk away with that information. But damn it, his tiny body still couldn't handle the raw power of an adult physique, and sustaining it was impossible. Realizing this was his only chance, he shouted at the girls to start the plan. Hearing his order, the girls wasted no time, and the man saw Xuan picking up a massive boulder from the ground, aiming right at him. Just like that, she hurled the massive thing straight towards the man using all her might. But somehow the brute managed to leap out of the way at the final second and land right back on his feet. But it was far from done, as this was just part of their plan, and he noticed something appearing underneath his feet. Before he could even get a chance to react, he found himself trapped inside a massive tornado. Turning towards the one responsible, he saw Yi standing in the distance trying to restrain him in place. But the man was still confident. These petty tricks were not enough to stop him. While he was underestimating them, our boy was already preparing to end the fight using the most powerful attack from his arsenal, his lightning spear. Just as the thing was fully charged up, he pulled back and, using what little strength was left in that tiny body of his, threw the thing right at the man's face. Seeing the thing coming, the man finally showed signs of fright on his face, realizing he was cooked. But somehow, using all his power, he managed to move his head out of the way at the final second and avoid death. The attack, however, was so powerful that it went flying into the distance and exploded with such intensity that everything in the vicinity turned to dust. But all of that had drained our boy completely, and he couldn't even get back on his feet. The man, on the other hand, was still standing, showing no signs of backing off. Our boy sat there completely powerless as the man began targeting his two sisters, ready to finally end it. With that, the brute leaped straight towards Xuan, since she was part of the main plan and he wanted to get it over with quickly. But to his surprise, Yi moved in to save her sister. The man needed her alive since he had other plans for her, so without any hesitation he kicked her right on her stomach, and she got launched away into the distance and crashed into a tree with such force that the thing actually snapped in two. With no one left to stop him anymore, he finally turned towards Xuan and launched a bunch of projectiles towards her. Turns out the things weren't aimed at her, but instead just a distraction so she wouldn't be able to run away this time. But just as he was about to strike her down, a yellow flash of light appeared between him and the girl, and upon looking closer he saw that it was the child, who somehow was still able to move. Seeing this, the man had no other choice but to put away the weapon, but that didn't mean he was planning on stopping, and with all his might he punched the kid right on his stomach. With such force, red liquid started gushing out of his mouth. With that, our boy went flying into the distance, but lucky for him, Xuan was still standing back there, and she managed to catch him mid-air before he could sustain any more injuries. But the man was finally having enough of his meddling in his business and asked if he was eager to die along with the girl. But to everyone's surprise, the kid wasn't afraid one bit. Instead, he told the man that if there was anyone dying here today, it was him. And just as the kid had said, the man heard a loud voice from the back calling for him. Turning back, he saw hovering in the air the old man himself, and the look on his face told the whole story. The man was done for since he had watched him attack his grandchild. Seeing this, the man finally realized the kid's full plan, and the reason he used that last attack on him was because he wanted to reveal their location to the old man. With that, the story cuts a couple minutes earlier, where the whole family, after taking out the horde of monsters, finally realized that the kid, along with the girl responsible for keeping an eye on him, was gone. Seeing this, the old man lost it and shouted for everyone to find the child immediately. But just then, they saw a powerful lightning attack being shot at the distance and realized it was our boy. So wasting no time, the old man leaped off of the cliff and started flying straight towards the location. With that, the story shifts back to the present, where the bastard was staring death right in the eyes, and since there was no way he could escape this situation with words, he figured he should just use that child as a hostage to make his escape. Thinking that, he leaped straight towards our hero once more, but this time Xuan was ready, and she pulled out the piece of iron rod from behind her, and, without wasting a beat, launched the thing right at the incoming man. But the brute was too fast, and he managed to get out of the way just in time. But just as he was about to get to the kid, he heard Ji's voice from the side, who was fuming, seeing that his second supposedly loyal dog turned out to be a traitor just like Chen. With that, he started attacking the man using his ability, but somehow the man managed to dodge all of them, but it was no use. In the chaos, he completely missed what was coming. The creature he had been feeding all this time was charging straight at him. By the time he realized it, it was already too late. Right in front of everyone's eyes, the beast clamped down on the brute and, without a second thought, began swallowing him whole. As soon as it was done absorbing his body, the creature started glowing, signaling that it was going through its transformation. But the old man was more concerned about his grandchild and was relieved to hear that he only sustained minor injuries. Other than that, he was fine. Hearing that, the man instructed the butler to take care of the two girls as well, since both of them risked their lives to save the child. Meanwhile, he would take care of the Snake King since the thing was ready to be harvested, and he wanted to see what rare treasures the thing was going to evolve this time for his grandson. Hearing his words, our boy finally realized how all this worked. These people lured unsuspecting awakeners into these dungeons to feed them to the beasts, which then underwent some kind of evolution. But this was information kept hidden from the outside world by the aristocratic families. As he was thinking all that, he finally saw both father and son preparing to take on the evolved beast all by themselves. And just like that, a massive explosion engulfed the whole area. Well, that's all, folks. Please leave a like for your boy, and if you want to know what happens next and want to support the channel, hit the subscribe button. Until next time, take care.